here, want to take a moment just to speak to you where we are in this world today. One, I wanted to say thank you for tuning in to Sunday Soul each week. It's been a real labor of love. Let me tell you kind of the reason why I started Sunday Soul. I spent 17 years in the broadcasting world, 17 years interviewing people that were fascinating, people that I wanted to keep on much longer than one segment or two segments or the time that my slot allowed. And I have made amazing relationships and amazing friendships over the years with these people and met the neatest people, right? And so earlier this year, before the quarantine happened, before any of these crazy things that are changing, things that are painful, things that are happening to us in the world and in America, I wanted to be able to interview these same amazing people and bring it to you and let you consume it. Not behind a paywall, not on Sirius, as much as I love my time there as the first female host on their collegiate channels, but I just wanted to do something that you could consume each Sunday that felt easy, like Sunday morning, right? Like felt good and warm, and like Sunday brunch and a long, wonderful conversation with somebody, and really pulling back the curtains and getting to know somebody. And so this Sunday, I wanted to take a moment where we are in the world and put together a mashup, put together a compilation of some of the most fantastic people that I've interviewed over the past couple of months. And we didn't even have time for all of them, so there'll be another mashup coming. But in the next hour, and you heard me, hour, you'll want to bookmark this and go back to it and tell your friends about it and share it, show it to your kids. In your next hour, you'll hear from the Naismith Award winner, the GOAT, I believe, in women's basketball, the #1 pick in the WNBA draft, Sabrina Ionescu. You'll also hear from the brand new commissioner of the Big Ten, Kevin Warren, a world changer, somebody who is born of generations of world changers. And that's what we need right now today. Desperately need our atmosphere changers and our world changers, our kings and queens to stand up. You're going to hear from one of the hottest coaches in the country, PJ Fleck. But what's really cool is it's with his wife, Heather. So you get to take a peek at marriage, right? And their advice on being best friends and being teammates, a totally different side of PJ Fleck. We've also got a Grammy Award winner in Mac Powell and Dove Award winner, former lead singer of Third Day, and now he's out on his own. He'll sing for you and tell you some stories about Israel. We have another international musician, Laura Reed. She's a humanitarian and an activist. She's from South Africa. She's amazing. And last but not least, my friend Adley Stump, who is an internet sensation, former contestant on The Voice, just a leader, a motivator, and makes you laugh. If you haven't watched the Adley Show, you have to watch it. So what you're going to hear in the next hour is a mashup of everything on finding your purpose, racism, defeating racism, right? Marriage advice, friendship advice, stories on Kobe Bryant, right? Like crazy, amazing, beautiful stories. And I wanted to do that this week because I know as the world listens to each other, right? And then listens with our whole heart, and then we start to heal, which I truly believe there's an awakening happening right now. I felt in my spirit that I wanted to bring you some of the goodness, a mashup of the goodness that I have experienced the past couple of months getting to do these interviews. So I pulled some of the best clips that I think you'll love. Enjoy. And one last thing before we start the show. If you like what I do here on Sunday Soul, I do it for you. I do it to give you that same wonderful feeling I get for the friendships and the relationships I have with these people. If you like it, would you do me a favor? Do me a solid. Subscribe, like it, share it, because I guarantee you there's somebody else that needs to hear what these people have to say. And I always say this, you have so much power in your fingertips, so much power for good. Use your platform. So we talk about, and I'm changing the narrative. Use your platform, and you have that opportunity to share this goodness. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for supporting me, and I'm changing the narrative. Love you guys. Sabrina, will you walk us through the viewers that are going to be watching this live or later on will you walk us through the day and the time when you met Kobe and Gianna?
Yeah, met them. We played at USC last year, and we had talked a few times before that, but they had come to the game. He had come with Gianna and two or three of her other teammates, and so they sat courtside to our game, and then were able to come in to the locker room after and share some words and talk to us and the team, and then our relationship just went up from there.
Do you remember what you were thinking the first time you met him? Do you at all get starstruck? Do you at all?
I for sure was starstruck. I mean, he came into the gym about 43 minutes before the game had started, and so we were still warming up, and there wasn't a lot of people in the crowd. So it was really cool to be able to see how early he got there, but just the presence around him. I mean, I started shaking, sweating. I started, getting ready for the game at a whole new level.
And what role, we've had a number of people call in, or tell me this week. I say call in, I was a talk show host for many years. So that's just my go-to line. Like in a moment, like I'm going to say 888-573-5325. Like I was on Sirius, so I'll be answering phones over here in a minute.
Okay.
I've had a number of people ask me this week, what role does your faith play in what you do? Because I remember early on in my career, I had an agent tell me, you really need to tone down your faith. You really need to, hide that, draw that back in. And I just said to him, thank you, but no, thank you. I don't. And he said, it's going to keep you from getting a job. And I said, there's no job that I want.
Exactly.
If I had to deny my father. So I would ask you, Sabrina, what role does faith play in every part of your life?
I mean, it's everything. And I think early on when I was younger, and I do think I tried to hide it a little bit more. I was always religious growing up. And I think, early on I was kind of uncertain with how people would view me if I was or wasn't. And I mean, now going to college and learning all the ups and downs and fighting adversity, I really needed that in my life in order to be able to stay positive and really stay sane. And obviously now through all the tragedy that I've gone through this year, that was my backbone. And that's kind of what that faith has really put me through, and really what I relied on tremendously. And so that's something that I'm never going to give up, and really makes me the person that I am. But I mean, all glory goes to him, and he kind of has that control, and that gives me peace as an athlete and as a person.
Sabrina, I've known loss very deep as well, and I've lost my mom, my dad, my adopted grandfather, my grandmother, a couple of dogs, all within the last 5-6 years. So I understand deep and profound loss. I also understand beauty can come from ashes. And I understand that sometimes in the greatest hurt, you can really figure out who you are. You can learn to be more appreciative of others and the love you have in your life, and so many lessons. But I'm curious about maybe some of the lessons that you've learned through your own grief.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it was something that I had never expected to happen, and especially in a year that was supposed to be so great for us and for me, and coming back for my senior year was so exciting, and I didn't really see anything derailing me or my team of the greatness that we were going to be able to achieve. And going through that tragedy this year, it really didn't. Obviously, it hurt us and it hurt me, but it never broke us. And so I relied on them more than I think I ever have, and I trusted them through the ups and downs and through the games where I couldn't think straight and I couldn't warm up, and that forever is going to hold a special place in my heart. And that really makes me it really made me realize and think about how much I view these people, not just as athletes or teammates that kind of go. And that relationship and that foundation is what a team is built on. And that really is what made us so special. It wasn't necessarily the points we were scoring or the rebounds. And so on a team aspect and scale, it showed me that. And then also, I think just as an individual, it showed me how strong I've been able to be in overcoming the situation, and obviously my family for supporting me. But I mean, it's an ongoing battle. It's something that you never really get over, and you just try and find ways to deal with it and take the good with the bad and keep going.
If I might ask you an incredibly personal question, I feel my people around from time to time. I feel like I feel them sometimes, and I know they're there. I wonder if there's been any moment in which you felt Kobe or Gianna around you.
For sure. I mean, there's been a lot of times. There's been a lot of kind of like God winks, I would say. Like I'll
Yeah.
sit in a seat that's 24. I'll look up in the sky and there's a purple and yellow sunset. There's just been so many kind of funny little like winks that I've gotten that I've been like, oh, he's right there, or yep, I hear you, or I see you. And then obviously going to sleep at night and hearing his voice, hearing his laugh, hearing her laugh. It's always kind of you wake up really sad, but then you think like, oh, that was him, talking to me, and that's what I needed to hear.
For female athletes, right? Like you're a role model for athletes, period. You look atop that triple double, NCAA record, and there you are, right? And I'm curious, I'm curious in, when Gianna maybe was gonna come up and play college ball and have her own career. What do you envision for female athletes, particularly in basketball, or just as a whole? What's your hope? What's your desire? What had you hoped for her and for others?
Yeah, I mean, we were paving the way for them, and that younger generation, just like the generations that came before us, were paving the way for us. And so hopefully just trying to continue to kind of make smaller that gap between the men and the women. And obviously in basketball, it's such a universal sport. But we were really trying, I think we are trying, especially our team this year, was kind of minimizing that gap between the two, and was making it okay for little boys to watch, women's basketball, was making it okay for little girls to want to play basketball at a young age. And so we were trying to pave the way and kind of set a new standard for, gender and our sport. And I mean, she was going to be able to do that, and her teammates were kind of that next generation that were going to take that on.
I love that. I love that. I always say I'm doing it for all the little girls, but I'm doing it for all the big girls too. I always described Third Day as this. There was not many other concerts that you could go to where you could totally jam out. I mean, I'm talking about like dance, like head bobbing, all of it, like Get Down James Brown. And the next moment, tears streaming down your face, hands up, like just absolutely amazing. And I remember at one of your concerts, you told a story about one of your songs, and you'll have to tell the story if you will for me. It was about one of your songs that that a young man had driven into the woods, and he was going to end his life. I'll let you take it here.
Right. Yeah, so we have a song called "Cry Out to Jesus" that had come out a few years back, and we were doing a concert in New Jersey, and this couple came up to us and talked to us, and fortunately, we had the great, honor of hearing this story. They had a son that had been struggling with addiction and depression his whole life, and he had actually already tried to take his life, thankfully unsuccessfully. Um, but he reached kind of the end of his rope, and he decided he drove off in his car. He was going to just take his life, and I won't go through the details, but he did. He pulled off the highway and found this little kind of trail into the woods, and was going through the process of taking his life. And he turned on the radio and he heard our song, "Cry Out to Jesus." And that song, even though he wasn't a Christian and he didn't like Christian music, and he was so mad that that was the only station that would come through on the radio. Um, he sat there and listened to the song and heard the message of that song. And the chorus says, "There's hope for the helpless, rest for the weary, and love for the broken heart. There's grace and forgiveness, mercy and healing, and he will meet you wherever you are. Cry out to Jesus." And so he sat there in the car and just listened to those words, and it changed his heart. And he decided then and there to continue to live. And so we've been very fortunate to hear several of those stories, and just, you always shake your head going, how can God take these dummies from Georgia and just, punk kids and give us some ideas for songs, and somehow that changes somebody's life. And it's very humbling.
Mac, there's another song that you played just last week around around Easter, and it's called "Thief." And woo, I talked to friends about that song. I've got some friends, Joel and Lisa Sears, that we've been to a show together before, and you just the gravity of that song. And I have to tell you this story because I think you'll really appreciate it. In May of 2018, I went to Israel with a group called Israel Collective, and people had told me, they said, it's going to rock your world.
Mm-hmm.
It'll change everything. The Bible will be 3D. And we went to the church where some people believe the tomb was, and our tour guide, who was a Jewish tour guide, said, just wait for us to take you to the garden tomb. Mm-hmm. And as soon as we walked into the garden tomb, Mac, all your hairs in the back of your neck stand up, and they show you Skull Hill, and they show you back in the 1800s where the eyes are there, and the nose and the mouth, and then they take you to the tomb. And I remember walking inside of the tomb, and I actually took a selfie, and it wasn't like trying to be a pretty selfie. It was just, I'm wrecked selfie. Like, this is where people believe, historians believe, our Savior laid, like his body laid right there in this tomb. And so I was listening to that song this weekend, and I was thinking about, and it took me back to May of 2018. And this is the part of the story I wanted to share. When I stooped, because you have to stoop to leave the tomb, I heard God say to me, and I tell people this all the time, God doesn't speak to me, thou art Rachel. It's a still small voice, but I know it's him. And he said something really profound to me that didn't make sense yet, Mac, but he said, my girl. He said, no matter what you think is the worst possible thing that could happen to you, lose your car, lose your house, lose your money, get sick, whatever it is, like whatever the worst possible thing you could think that would happen to you, I've got you. I've got you.
Right.
And I left the tomb. I went home, forever changed. And 2 months later, my mom was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer. And 10 months later, I lost her. And I share this story to share that God, our Father, our Abba Father, was trying to tell me, he was giving me a heads up, if you will, that my world was about to be wrecked.
Right.
And that he had me, and that he was not going to let go. And that's my thief story. That's my garden tomb story. I'd love to hear yours.
Well, I tell you, thank you for sharing that. I've had the great fortune of being there twice in Israel. I went in 18 and 19, and it kind of, I've told people it's not, it sounds really bad, like I'm discouraging someone to go, but it's not a fun trip. It's not like hanging out at the beach, and it's very, and yet it's still amazing. I mean, just that, God's country, God's land, his chosen people, and to be there and to walk. I was thinking about the other day, I was reading from the book of Mark, and it talked about a place that Jesus had gone to in Caesarea Philippi. I was like, oh, we were there. We went there, and it's so interesting how you say that it brings the Bible into 3D, because it really does. And there are so many things, walking in Israel, being at the Garden Tomb, being in so many places where, it just opens up your eyes and your heart. I'm going to sing a song for you. This was on my latest, on the country album, Mac Powell and the Family Reunion.
Okay.
But I think this song really, it really kind of pertains to the time we're in. I think every single one of us have gone through in life, even before this time of quarantine, have gone through hard times, have gone through struggles. You mentioned earlier about your mom passing. And all of us have gone through those things that kind of rock our world and shake us a bit. And I don't know about for you in your life, but I know in times I've gone through things like that, it's usually someone helps me through. It's my faith, but it's more than that. I'm not strong enough, really. And I'm not afraid to admit that. I'm not strong enough to do it on my own. And so people reach out, whether it's a family member or a neighbor or a great friend, or sometimes it's the kindness of a stranger. people help us through those hard times. And so if we have been helped in times like that, and given strength and wisdom and direction, how can we not want to return that favor to someone else? And that's what this song's about. And this is called "Red on a Rose." Can you hear this acoustic guitar? All right. Sometimes life don't work out like you planned it. Sometimes it's so hard to understand it. Which way's up and which way's down? What you're looking for ain't always found. Well, I'll be your blue sky when it's raining and the green grass under your feet. When the world gets complicated, you can count on me. And I'll be your shelter when you need one. When the winds of winter blow, I will hold you close and never let you go. Like a red on a rose. Yeah. Sometimes you feel like your prayers aren't answered. Sometimes you might fall taking chances. And if you do, I'm there to catch you. If you want to give up, I won't let you know. I'll be your blue sky when it's raining and the green grass under your feet. When the world gets complicated, you can count on me. And I'll be your shelter when you need one. When the winds of winter blow, I will hold you close and never let you go. Like a red on a rose. Oh, like a red on a rose. I'll be your blue sky when it's raining and the green grass under your feet. When the world gets complicated, you can count on me. I'll be your shelter when you need one. When the winds of winter blow, I will hold you close and never let you go. Like a red on a rose. Oh yeah, like a red on a rose.
Woo. Happy tears. My grandmother always used to say that I'll leave you with this, Mac. She used to say she was wonderful. She was my soulmate. And she used to say, honey, I'd cry about a boy. She'd say, save those tears for happy tears. She said, don't cry about him. And so I thought about that song, and I thought about something you said earlier in the interview, and it's so true. As horrific as what we're going through right now, right? There are also some beautiful parts of it. And I've likened it to, I've heard our friend Jensen Franklin, you've sung many times at Free Chapel. He preached a sermon on sometimes the gifts that are in these unlikely packages, right? Like, and I've said this time and what we're going through, that the package is ugly, it's pointy, you know, the tape is wrong, it's just an ugly package, but inside is time. Inside is reflection, and time is rest, and time is kinship and loving each other and being there for each other. And I love that we didn't decide on, I didn't know what you were going to choose, but you chose a song that reminds me of the humanity of all this and how much we need each other. And you are right. It is people, you know, beautiful, wonderful people that have helped your adoption journey, that helped you pray for Amy, that helped me get through the loss of my mother, that helped me build this movement. And I would not be where I am today without them. So I love that you chose that for this time. And just as a general reminder that we were born for each other. You know, you weren't born for you. And a college commissioner, one that dreams as big as you do, what can they teach the world about better race relations from all perspectives? We're not just talking about just black and white. We're talking about brown and Jews and you know, and all right, any sort of racism. What can a college commissioner do to change the landscape in terms of ending racism?
I mean, it's a wonderful question. Is that if you look at some of my core pillars, they all have something to do just with people making the world a better place, and none of them have anything to do with winning championships. So there are a lot of times people would ask me, so if you look at number one, you know, educate and empowering our student athletes, and under that rubric is voter registration and mental health and wellness and financial wellness and literacy. You know, that's all about taking care of our student athletes. And then you think about, you know, so those kind of areas, none of my core pillars have anything to do with, you know, the next one is capturing the hearts and minds of our fans. You know, making sure we're taking care of our fans. The next one is building relationships with all of our constituents. We have 166 Fortune 500 companies in the Big Ten footprint. You know, the last one is making sure we're financially strong so we can do all these things. But nowhere on the core pillars that it says we need to win X number of national championships. Now, does it talk about graduation rates? Yes. Are we exploring the disparity between people in color and non-people of color? Yes. But so to answer your question, what can we do as a conference commissioner is just what we're talking about, is making sure that we deal with those, you know, issues. Because when you start getting the mental health and wellness, I don't say here's a mental health and wellness platform, you know, if you're a white, you know, swimmer, or if you're a black football player. This is a mental health and platform for our student athletes, you know, and our coaches and our and our administrators. Or if this is a financial wellness or literacy program, it's for everyone. Or when I talk about voter registration, I'm not just talking about for non-people of color, people of color. I mean, our student athletes need to understand what it means to register to vote and the power of the vote. And so if you really peel back the covers on all of the things that I'm passionate about that we're putting forth at the Big Ten Conference, it deals with building people and making people better. And then when you do that, it quite naturally overcomes racism.
Well, you know, you've got my heart and stole it from the first time I met you, but you've been so outspoken and so pronounced and so vocal about mental health. And, you know, listen, I just had somebody ask me today, you know, kind of what is your movement all about? And I said, listen, until you have good love for yourself, you can't have good love for anybody else. Till you fix what we call funky junk, you can't, nothing else is going to work well until you fix this and what's inside here. So just a big bravo to you, my friend, for stepping out and embracing that. And it caught the media by storm. You were all over. I took a bunch of pictures, watched all the interviews, and was so very proud of you for taking a stand, because here's the reality. Because of your work, and I share the same space, right? So I get it, but because of your work, there's somebody out there that's going to feel less alone and is not going to take their life. There's going to be somebody out there that chooses to seek professional help, and because it's less stigmatized, it's destigmatized, it's normalized through the work you're doing, and you already are saving and changing lives. That's a fact.
You know, that was the whole point of it is, and I said it from day one. You know, we provided the Calm app to every one of our Big Ten student athletes, our coaches, administrators in the Big Ten. And people ask me, you know, why did you do that? It's interesting. Sometimes when you talk to individuals, they want to always go to the cost. You know, how much did it cost? I said it's irrelevant. The fact of the matter is that you tell me what a life is worth. And if there's, you know, so no matter what we paid for it. And that's why I was so adamant about that we did pay for it, that I didn't want to do a sponsorship program with Calm where they gave it to us for free and then we gave it away, because that would, to me, that would cheapen the value of a life. I wanted to actually for the conference to pay for it, because when you start asking yourself, whatever we pay for, it is far less than what the value of a life is. And when we take on every one of our student athletes, it really is in loco parentis. We have a responsibility to take care of them. And me having a son who's a current student athlete at Mississippi State University in the Southeast Conference, you know, every time he goes back to school, you know, right, wrong, or indifferent, I have an expectation that those coaches there, although this staff there wasn't there who recruited him, and unfortunately he's on his third staff, but even the coaches there who coach him, that they have a fiduciary responsibility to take care of my son, just like if he were their son or grandson or whatever the case may be. That means to encourage him when he needs encouragement, to discipline him, when he needs disciplining, and because I've trusted him to take care of them. And I just want to make sure that all the moms and dads and grandmas and grandpas and aunts and uncles and siblings know that if you come to a Big Ten school, we're going to do everything within our power to put money to the side to make sure that we do everything we can to take care of our student athletes, and also, which I know take care of our coaches. And that's a forgotten group that we need to make sure that we continually give more love and respect to.
I mean, Matt, you've got grand plans, coaches, fans, staff, players, trainers. I mean, it's really voluminous, and I'm so excited about the future. Kevin, you had an accident when you were young, 11 years old, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. That put you in a body cast, and you had to come back from that.
And it taught me a lesson, because when I looked at the picture in the hospital bed in traction right after my accident, I had forgotten about some of the other injuries that I had. And when I really stared at it, I noticed that my wrist was wrapped and I had a broken wrist, but I was so focused on, my leg, and then going from traction to a body cast. And I've shared this story, so many times, is the fact that even during that process, the thing that probably hurt me the most was the fact that I was struggling, emotionally and mentally, because I didn't know if I was going to make it. I didn't know if I was going to walk again. I mean, everyone tells you all this good stuff, oh, everything's going to be okay. And I'm thinking, I'm a realist. How do you know everything's going to be okay? And they may, anytime you have to go in and set a compound fracture on a femur, the largest bone in your body, you don't know if it's going to be okay. I mean, what happens if it doesn't set right? What happens if the bone breaks again? What happened? What happened? We don't. So until I see myself walk and run again, I don't know if it's going to be okay. But I'm writing a book on it right now called Build Your Own Pool. And because during my journey after the accident, I had a doctor who encouraged me, although he wasn't very encouraging, but he encouraged me that the best thing that would help me to recover would be if I swam. And my parents didn't have the resources and to build a pool, so I actually took a portion of my settlement and paid for a swimming pool, at 11 years old in my backyard to start rehabbing. And so that's why the book is called Build Your Own Pool. And again, back what you've taught about finishing, this, I finished it, and now I'm just cleaning up. And literally by this Friday, I would have cleaned up the final draft of it. But during that journey, I talked to my sister, who ended up spending a bunch of nights in the hospital with me. And I asked her, just generally speaking, really went to a time together like this with no preconceived notion of what I wanted to say, and asked her, like, what do you remember? And she said, what I remember, and I thought she was going to say something, funny or whatever. She said, it used to have these night terrors in the middle of the night, because she slept in the hospital with me, where you would just scream so loud in the middle of the night that it worried us. We actually went to the nurses and doctors and said what's going on. And the doctor explained to her that they were called night terrors, that once you really enter into REM sleep, and if you've had trauma, especially as a kid, then you really express it through these night terrors. I never even remembered that I did it, but because the doctor told her and my mom that, during the day he can mask his feelings, and, whether it was just emotion, whether it was through medication, but he can mask it. But he couldn't. But at night, when he was in REM sleep, he couldn't mask it any longer. And that's what she meant, and made me think about it through all the doctors that I had, all the surgeries, all the doctors, all the rehab, the traction, the cast, and all those different things. Not one time did someone come and talk to me about my mental health and how I feel. Not one time. And so when I think about that, that's probably, why I'm so passionate. And I think what happened is that my body, it just rewired itself, in a manner, and rewired itself. I was just looking for that document. Rewired itself to get me through, and fortunately, so the way my hardwiring came in, it ended up working out. Then so I ended up using all the pain, and the anger, the physical and the mental pain to be that that jet fuel that gets me up every morning and to push through. So it's been great, writing this book. And I think I have a copy of the cover right here, Rachel. I've shown this to yeah. So here's the cover of the book right here called "Build Your Own Pool," which is pretty cool.
I
And so
love it.
details, but that's the picture of me in the hospital bed. But
Bring it up just a little bit.
I had
There we
forgotten. This is actually just the script. As you can see, we're working on it. But
Amazing.
if you really look at my face, you can see the pain, on my face. And like I said, I'd forgotten I had broken my wrist because so many times in life, we always go to the biggest pain point, and we focus on that. And I had a brother, God rest his soul, he was funnier than heck. He would say something I never had. He was in a car accident, and he said he was hurt, but when they sent an ambulance, the other person in the other car was hurt worse. And he said, think about it. He said, in an ambulance, there's really only one bed. They always take the worst hurt person, unless they send 2 ambulances. And very rarely, unless you see a really bad accident, you only see 1 ambulance. And so they told him, we know you're hurt, but you basically need to drive yourself home, because he could survive. He was okay. He had maybe broken ribs. But I say that to say is that with life, we it's sometimes so easy. We just go to the highest order of where our pain is, where the thing that may be impacting us the most may not be the highest. It may be something down lower. And so although everyone was focused on my right femur, because that's what they could see was broken, you could look at the x-rays, but where I really needed the most help was kind of in my mind and in my spirit. And no one ever took the time to do that. I know my parents prayed over me and my sister, but just from a health standpoint. And so I just wanted to make sure that we did everything we possibly could to positively impact, so our student athletes in the Big Ten would not have to say the same things that I said.
Kev, my heart is doing backflips right now. My mind is just blown. Try not to cry. Like, I know you get it, but what happened to you as an 11-year-old ended up shaping your future, and the way that you are taking care of and redefining and changing the landscape for student athletes, right? Like it is truly Romans 8:28. It's truly purpose, playing out in your life. There's no coincidences, and you embody what we teach in the movement, and that is, I'm not a victim, I'm a victor. I'm not going to get bitter, I'm going to get better. And so, yes, I had a player years ago tell me after a talk, he said, Miss Rachel, I came from the hard places of Memphis. And he said, we moved every couple of months. We didn't have electricity. I ate beans from cans. And he said, until you came along here, he said, I was so angry that no one helped me that I said, I ain't helping nobody. I was hard. I was angry. And he said, you came along and made me realize, because no one helped me, that's exactly why I should help somebody else. And tears streaming down his face. Of course, I'm crying, but it is, I love to see something come full circle. And I know I'll get a signed copy, but I will cherish that and probably give it to everybody that I know, saying, look, this is what happened to him when he was a young boy, and look what it produced all these years ago.
I tell people all the time, and I can say this, that who knows, but I believe that in my deepest heart of hearts, that but for this accident, I wouldn't be sitting here today doing this interview, because I think it was really doing that pain and that struggle. And I talk about this in my book. The worst thing you can do to a butterfly is to go cut open the cocoon, and so many times is to cut it open and think, I want to eliminate the struggle. It's really, the struggle is on purpose. That's where, it gets all the gook off the wings, so it can be able to fly.
What we think of success. But for me, it was like, I've stayed true to myself and kept my lights on since I was 17 years old doing music. So for me, that's success. And whenever I start to lose my way, I'm like, why do I do this? And I think of the 15-year-old girl donating her money to African charities after she plays a gig, and be like, yes, I have to stay true to that girl. Yeah, because I think that it's very easy in our industry to just try and please everyone. you
I,
know,
I think
and
that's in general, though, Laura.
in general. Yeah.
I think so many people are going to be watching this. And by the way, cheers. You have your tea. I have my celery juice. You
Well,
have your,
this is coffee.
yep, tea, coffee. But in your
I
free
had my celery juice before. First thing in the morning, I had my celery juice.
it is, by the way, and we're going to get into it later on, but she and I are both very homeopathically inclined. And if you have not checked it out, read The Medical Medium. He talks about the power, the infinite power of celery juice alone in the morning, 16 ounces. Give it 30 minutes for anything else to get in your system. And it literally starts at your esophagus and goes down through your body and hits so many organs, your blood, your liver, and it's like a miracle cure for
I love it.
the maladies.
Yeah, no, I love it. I can tell the difference. I didn't have celery juice last week and I felt completely different. So I make a big, what is this word? Growler.
Yeah.
I make a big growler of it and I put a little bit of key lime juice in there just to kind of preserve it or whatever. And oh, it's so good.
You know, it's interesting. And we were talking about conforming, and this is where I want to wrap it into everybody who may be listening, especially women, and men too, but especially women. We get these messages our whole life that we're too short, too fat, too tall, too stupid, too overeducated for this, TOO. And I go into colleges and groups across the country and tell them, you are enough. You are amazing. In all of the world, the same creator, whatever it is that you believe that created the Andes and the Himalayan mountains and all these natural wonders, thought that the world needed one of you too. You are amazing. And so I think that message of you not conforming, and really you said something that got me, and that's a way to check in with yourself. That's a way to check in with your soul. And if anything, Laura, during COVID, things have gotten really quiet around us. You see where nature's coming back. You see all these things happening. I think it's given us the opportunity to hear that voice again, to hear that still small voice, to say, that doesn't feel good. That does feel good. maybe I need to do this. I think it's given us that opportunity to reset.
Totally. Reset has been definitely my thought, you know, because we've always talked about this. I believe everyone has a purpose. I really do. I believe everyone has their own story and their journey for a reason. And it's like our thumbprint, you know, our fingerprint. And it's so easy to get distracted. There's so many things these days to distract us. And, you know, even though I feel like I'm a pretty centered person, I get distracted. And there's definitely been times where I'm like, okay, I'll sing that thing, or okay, I'll do that, because, you know, everyone around me is like, that's what it is. This is the look. This is the thing. Yeah. And then I look back and I'm like, oh, that was so unfulfilling. And I was straying, you know, and there's something about, you know, you get a lot done when you don't have to ask for permission. So there's something about being independent. Woo! That'll preach. Seriously, and I've always been proud about being independent. I have been with record labels, I have been with major publishers, but I was always, you know, definitely the CEO of Laura Reed, because it was so important, you know, because I don't even feel like I own these words or any of this. I'm meditating, I'm praying, I'm setting intentions for these songs and trying to be a vessel. So for me, it's like I'm reverent about it. It's something more important than, you know, just going and entertaining people. And it's like, to make money, there's way easier ways to make money. You know, to be famous, anyone can be famous now. I mean, it's easy. Yeah. You know? So it's like, it has to be something else, you know, and I realize that. And interesting enough, COVID also kind of reminded me, because until recently, the music industry, you know, now everything is streamed. Everybody in the business was like, all right, the only way to make money now is shows. So just focus on your live business. And then they're like, and now you can do no shows. And we don't know when you can do shows again. So all of us musicians and artists are just like, but we love this. How do we figure out another thing? Okay, I'm going to live stream. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And it's like, it really brings you back to, why do you do this? Does it bring you joy? You know, like, what is this about? And it always comes back to people, connecting with people, you know. I love that. You know, I think that's the thing for me. And you know, just empathy, being vulnerable. You know, you share these songs that for me, like, you know, I wrote by myself in a dark time or a hard time while I'm emotionally mining and trying to find my way. And these words come to me, and then I share them, and someone I've never met before, they hear those words, and it's like we just united, we just connected. You know, that spirit moving through all of us, and
Yeah.
the medicine that is music. It's medicine.
Yes, 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 yes. Speaking of that, I don't want to hold you off any longer for our listeners. I want them to hear you. If you would play, it's one of my favorites, "Struggle," and I think it is such a perfect song for where we are right now.
Happily. Now I will warn you. This is early in the morning for our listeners out there. Yeah. So this is "Struggle," and it's from the album The Awakening. So The Awakening was just that, and this song was such an epiphany for me. So. And I'm playing with a pick because in quarantine I can't get my nails done. So it's real out here, y'all. It's those little things that you get attached to. I'm like, I can't play guitar without my long nails on this hand, and it's like, no, you can figure it out.
Yeah.
Somebody feels the pressure. Body's ready to. Body feels the weather. Always got a storm passing through. Somebody got a mouth to feed. Somebody got far to travel. Somebody lives in the streets. Their own worlds unraveled. Every question got an answer. Every lock has got a key. Every day's another chance for us to write our history. Everybody got a story. Everybody got a struggle. Everybody got worries. Everybody got trouble. Everybody got a story. Everybody got a struggle. Yeah. Everybody got purpose. Got a path to follow. Always be another test. Always be another trial. Then to get off your chest. Another road, another mile. Time turns mountains to sand. Time turns sand into pearls. Time waits for no one man. One man can change the world. Everybody got a story. Everybody got a struggle. Everybody got worries. Everybody got trouble. Everybody got a story. Everybody got a struggle. Yeah. Everybody got purpose. Got a path to follow. I don't mind to grow. I don't mind. I don't mind the struggle. No, 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 no. I don't mind to grow. I don't mind. I don't mind the struggle. No, 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 no. Oh.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. I'm curious your thoughts on being each other's best friend and how that relates to the success of your marriage.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever gotten on Heather's nerves.
Never. Anybody that says that their marriage is perfect or their relationship is perfect is lying. There is there is no such thing as perfect. And I think we get on each other's last nerves more than once a day at times, but especially with being home 24/7, which is very new to us. But how many best friends have you ever had in your life that you don't get on each other's nerves? That's part of the beauty of being best friends. I mean, we are best friends in everything that we do, whether it's a board game or football or whatever we do, we sacrifice for each other. And I think we both have learned over our lifetimes that if you're not best friends in a relationship, it won't work. And part of being best friends is having little tiffs and having disagreements. And as long as you do it in a respectful way, it works.
Yeah, I would say that, we love doing stuff together. I'm not one that, goes and hangs out with the boys and she goes out with the girls for 5 days straight. We love to do things together. So when we golf, we go together. She's my best friend, right? So whether that's a boy or that's a girl, that's your best friend, right? So for me, my wife happens to be that. And so we share everything together and do a lot of things together and have a lot of the same interests. And I think that's really important. For our lifestyle and what we do, that's what we both prefer. There's people that prefer opposites attract. We're so similar that I think we both had to find out, just as we've lived our life, that we together attract each other based on how similar we are. And I think that's really neat. We're both type A people, I would say, and we need that in our life. And I would say even our disagreements, we know that we'll be able to get out of that because 10 minutes later, we'll just forget about it, right? And move on. And I think that's really healthy. Nobody's perfect, right? But you can be perfect for someone,
Yes.
right? You can be perfect for that person. Doesn't mean what you're doing is always perfect, but even in our time of disagreements, I mean, I don't say we like our disagreements, but we know we're going to get through them. I think some people don't have that. And our positive times, we know that there's plentiful of those.
You know what I love too, Coach? I always say this, Coach and Heather. I say to my significant other, Chris, I say, you know what? The best thing about this is that when we do disagree, there's always a conversation at the end and a deeper understanding of each other, right? Like there's never usually a disagreement where we don't come out better as human beings and as a couple, and having learned, okay, that hurts you. Okay, I see where I did that and I didn't mean to, and that hurt you. And so in a weird way, and maybe a psychologist can explain it, but I think that you can come out of disagreements better for each other.
For sure.
I would agree. Yeah, Heather's Italian and Irish, so you can imagine the combination of that. It's like, it's wonderful. No, she's got the biggest heart out of anybody. The one thing about her is, I remember praying at night, just asking the good Lord to bring me someone that was passionate.
Mm-hmm.
Just bring me someone that's so passionate about life and passionate about me and passionate about our future and passionate as a mother and so on and so forth. Here she is. And it came in like a hurricane, you know what I mean? And Hurricane Heather. But it's fun because we're very similar that way, where we love life, we live life to the fullest, and we have a lot of passion, not only for each other, but passion for football, passion for each other, passion for our kids, passion for our future, passion to travel. But everything we do is passionate. And I think that's a fun way to live.
It's interesting.
I think you don't have to talk about who I am.
I agree. And neither one of us, what I love about us is that neither one of us are sweeping under the wrong type of people. We don't beat around the bush. We don't walk on eggshells. If we have something on our minds, we talk about it. And speaking your feelings should never lead to an argument. And I think both of us are really good at being able to talk to each other and communicate, even if we disagree. It's never just swept under the rug. We talk about it, we squash it, we figure it out, and we communicate about it. And I think that's been the key to our success, is that I've always talked about respect and communication. You've got to have a best friend first and foremost, but if you can be best friends and be married and always have respect for each other and always communicate, it's very hard to fail if you have all those things.
And Heather makes me better every day. I hope I make her better, just like she makes me better. And getting better is not always liking what you're going through, right? And I've had to learn a lot as a husband, as a best friend, from being just a head football coach, right? And then coming home and you're in charge of so many people and you make every decision, and then being able to shut that off and let that control go. and not only just let it go, but have balance and know when to interject, when not, when to give your opinion, when not to, all those other things, you know. And so it makes you better, but just because it's making you better doesn't mean you're going to like everything you have to go through to be better. Getting better is not about just enjoying it, right? And that you have no issues or problems or arguments or disagreements. That's not what it's about. And I always say, Heather makes me better than anybody else, and I hate it. That's the best way to put it.
Nobody likes to be told they need to do something better. And I think with him and I, we've both grown. I've always said that in any relationship, either you grow together or you grow apart, but either way you grow. And you have to really fight to make sure you grow together. And if you don't have a partner that makes you better every day, you're never going to grow together. And I mean, there's a million things he's made me better at that I didn't even know I had to be better at. Right. So
let's listen.
Nobody likes to be told they need to do something better. So when you have somebody that can kind of just naturally make you better, I think that's key.
I think I always say this, and I don't know if I've said it to your team at one point in time, I probably have, but having someone that loves you in a romantic relationship or loves you unconditionally is like holding a mirror to your face. And they show you all the most beautiful parts of you, but they also show you, if it's done right in a loving way and the love is good love, they show you the ways that you can improve, right? You know, and when you're with somebody that, you know, again, whatever kind of love it is you're with somebody, you want to be better. And they show you those parts. You're like, oh, wait, I didn't know it was like that.
Where it is. Mm-hmm. And so it's about, 2 years of just kind of floating. Everybody's saying, hey, you're on to something, but what are you trying to do? What do you want? How can I help? And I'm like, I don't really know what I want. You know I want to entertain and I want to do what I'm doing now. And it feels good. And I want to do it at a bigger level. Mm-hmm. And eventually that same mentor who gave me the opportunity to make videos was like, do you want to be the next biggest country music star in the world? And I'm like, not really. And he goes, then why are you spending 20 to 40% of your time still putting that message out there to be consistent to the narrative that you told the world once? And that you didn't even necessarily choose, but you've leaned into, and it's opened a lot of doors and given you this platform. If you don't want what's at the end of this path, go all chips in with this opportunity you have with Facebook. And you're in a really unique position. Go all in on that, Adley. Go all in on one damn thing for 6 months and see what happens. Because I would be so widespread, I would move the needle incrementally in a bunch of different places in my life instead of focusing on 1 to 2 things that were really gonna elevate my brand. And so when I took that advice, and that was the hardest thing to do, Rachel, is to say, this has been my narrative for 8 years, subconsciously even. We all have that subconscious narrative, you know, and you don't even realize that you have it until you step out and say, here's how I'm operating, here's how I'm thinking, here's what I'm doing, subconsciously. It's like a foot on the gas pedal. You're driving, but not thinking about what you're doing. You're just operating in that mode.
You know, Adley, I think I think so many people are going to relate to that because so many people are operating in a narrative. And I did it too. When I stopped sportscasting last fall to go 1,000% in on I'm changing the narrative, I remember calling one of my girlfriends who worked at the college football playoff, Gina Leahy, and she's now at the NCAA, and she's a great mentor friend of mine. And she said, you are more than a sportscaster. Don't be afraid. And it was the same thing that I was teaching my athletes, that you're more than an athlete, but yet I was dealing with my own identity crisis, my own narrative, my own, and even still, I'm like, it's still strange. It's different, and it's something you come to terms with, but I love that. And I also think, Adley, there's something to that in this time of quarantine, that there's going to be a lot of people that don't go back to that narrative or are starting to deeply question who they are and what they're supposed to be doing.
I agree, because we're in a time where we love our control, right? But the things that we worship, our athletes, our movies, our celebrities, our events, our concerts, those milestone things that we look forward to and find purpose in, that's all been stripped from us. We are forced to be still and look at what actually matters in life, and that's human relationships and how we treat each other in the state of our life and our families. And we're being forced to look up and around in what's in front of us immediately, like physically being stuck at home to look and observe the state of our life. And so many people immediately and obviously want to be like, oh my God, this sucks. But in every sucky situation, there is an opportunity. And I and you and so many of us have had to train ourselves. That is a muscle that you exercise, because we say that things suck and become fearful for self-preservation. But if you can turn that switch off, get rid of that narrative and say, there is so much opportunity in the valley, in the pain, in the dip, in the trial. And what got me here today are not the same set of tools that are going to get me to the next mountaintop. So when you're in a valley, the quicker you figure out what tools you're supposed to pick up down here and do the work, the quicker you're going to get out of this valley and get to the next mountaintop, right?
Girl.
So we're all, so much of our world right now is in this valley.
Yeah.
Figure out what you're supposed to learn. Figure out how you can grow and develop and change your family, change your life, what you don't like about where you just came from. Now you've got the time to fix it. Necessity is the best teacher. I went bankrupt after The Voice and signed some really crappy deals. I thought all my friends are up here from the show. They're signing record deals. They're going on major tours. They're superstars. I had the same experience, but I'm down here filing from bankruptcy, can't put gas in my car, going through litigate, like all this crappy stuff. But I was sure that was meant for me, right? He put me in that situation. That's what this was supposed to be. But here I am. Most of these people weren't making music a year, 2 years later down the line. They're not even in entertainment anymore. The necessity of being down here and figuring out what I wanted, what it looked like, and learning how to fight for it got the green out of me real fast. And it built a tenacity that I am so thankful for. It taught me how to solve problems. It taught me how to solve other people's problems that would get what I needed to the market. It was the best time ever. And I would not be half of the person that I am or try to be today if that crap hadn't happened. Ooh. And like what we're going through right now, if people can put that filter on, choose that filter, that lens, then they're going to look back like we do at every situation in hindsight and say, that makes sense. I'm glad that trial happened. I'm glad. And we just know that's coming maybe 2 years down the line, even maybe 20 years down the line. But we know it's coming, that this time is going to make sense. And we're going to look back at our lives, and we're going to look back at this time in 2 years, 5 years, and say, here's what happened during that time. Write your story, write your narrative right now. Yes. What did this time do for you? Did it weaken you or did it make you stronger?